Action is what creates clarity. Action is what creates everything. You can't just sit around and think about things and have them happen. You also cannot sit around and pray for the motivation or the clarity fairy to come down and give you clarity.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Perfectly Mentored. I'm your host, Jason Portnoy. My guest today is the super talented, super smart, lovely, amazing entrepreneur, Jen Gottlieb. She was on VH1 for over 14 seasons and has leveraged that to creating super connector media with her fiance, Chris, and they've won Best New Agency Awards. I mean, they're one of the top PR firms out there. And if you're on social media, you've probably seen Jen out there. She's doing an incredible job at that. And does she deliver on this episode with actionable advice on how to get yourself out there, how to dominate your mindset, how to become the better entrepreneur that you want to be? You're not going to want to miss this one. Check it out. Jen, thank you so much for being here. Welcome. I've been looking forward to doing this for a while. Welcome to the show.
Same. I'm so excited, Jason. This is going to be really fun.
Look, I usually like to start with getting to the story from you on kind of how you became the entrepreneur you are today. And I guess the queen of PR.
Oh my gosh. People keep saying that, the queen of PR. And I'm like, okay, I'll take it.
Take it.
This is a new name for me. So I'm trying to just like receive it and be like, okay, I could rock with that. Wow. My entrepreneurial journey did not we always joke, me and my best friend, Angela, who's my chief publicity officer at my company. We always make this joke that if I were to ever try to get a real job and like submit a resume, like if I've never had a resume before other than an acting resume, but if I had one, it would be the weirdest thing in the entire world, because I've done so many different out there things that you would never be like you would never understand how the dots connected. And if you would have asked me 5 years ago, even if I would run a PR agency and that would be my business and that would be what I do, I would tell you you were crazy. So there's been a lot of dots that has connected me here. And I like sharing the story because if there's anybody listening that's like, oh, I could never get out of what I'm doing right now and do what I really want, or, you know, is kind of in something where they can't possibly see how the outcome that they want will show itself. If anybody's story shows you that if you just keep on going, it'll connect as it's supposed to, right? You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. If my story doesn't show you that, then I don't know what does. Because I moved to New York City when I was 20 years old. I dropped out of college. I went to school for musical theater and I was like, I can't be in college. I need to move to New York City and do what I want to do. And so I moved by myself and went to a musical theater conservatory program. It's like a 2-year intensive program where you sing and you dance and you act and they get you ready to audition for Broadway. And I was convinced, you know, since I was 4, maybe even younger, that I was going to be on Broadway and performing. And if there was a table anywhere, I would sing and dance on it, forget about it. Like that was me. And so I went to school, and shortly after graduating, or actually just before I graduated, I ended up getting my dream role in the Broadway national tour of The Wedding Singer. Have you seen The Wedding Singer, the Adam Sandler movie?
I've seen the movie. I didn't even know there was a Broadway show on it.
There was a Broadway show. And so I went to go see the Broadway show when I was in school with my friend. And it was like one of the first Broadway shows I went to see from moving to New York. And I watched this woman, this actress named Felicia Finley, play the role of Linda. So if you've seen the movie, you know Linda the bitch that leaves him at the altar, like the fiance.
Yep.
Okay, so in the show, she has this hilarious role where she's like this kind of like Joan Jett wannabe rock star. It's so funny. And I was dying, laughing, crying. And my friend was like looking at me like I was crazy. And then literally I felt like God came down to me and told me that I had to play that role. And I looked at him and I was like, I'm going to play that part one day. And he's like, okay. I was literally a student living in a 5x5 square in New York City with like a sink in the room and like twin bunk beds. That was my life. And there was no Broadway auditions in my future. I was just going to school and learning how to do what I wanted to do. And this is a longer story than what we have time for, but I learned about the law of attraction from my mom. She gave me this book, maybe you've heard of it, called The Secret. And when I read this book, I was like, this is crazy. I don't necessarily believe in this. I think it's actually kind of bullshit. I was not into personal development at the time. My mom was a Reiki master. And so I was very turned off by that. I was that girl that was like, oh, stop Reikiing me. Like, this is not real. And then she gave me this book and I'm like, this is stupid. But then I heard Oprah on some interview where she was talking about how she manifested her role in The Color Purple using this thing called the law of attraction. So I believed like maybe a little bit more than I didn't, that maybe there was something to this. And that's whenever I teach people about belief and mindset and putting yourself out there, which is, what we help people with. I always say you only have to believe a little bit more than you don't, because as human beings, we don't necessarily believe in anything 100%. Let's be real. Like, we don't believe in it like 100%. The only thing that you need to get to the first action step of anything is that little 1% of belief. So like 51%. If you can believe 51%, that'll get you to that first action step, which will then create the momentum. And then maybe you'll get to 97%, right? And then maybe you'll get back down to 51% when it starts to get hard, but you just need that 1%. So I believed a little bit more than I didn't. And so I did an experiment, and I used the law of attraction, visualization, feeling the lights on my body, visualizing myself like playing this role, singing the songs in my head, going into school and performing all of Linda's songs for all of my demos and pretending that I was on Broadway every time that I did it. And after auditioning and not getting the part again and again and again, and getting a million no's, and having to sneak into an audition and be really sneaky and take a lot of scary, weird action steps and keep on going, and then finally become the understudy and not even the real role. And then getting the part, playing the part on the stage for the first time in my life, wearing Felicia Finley's costume, wearing her costume, feeling the lights on my body, seeing the audience, the exact same visual that I saw in that moment, exactly the same, was the one that I had been doing in my head when I was in that little twin bed in school years ago. And when I had that moment, I walked backstage. I remember it so clearly. I collapsed on the floor and I was crying, and everyone was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, I can create anything that I want. This is bizarre. Like, I literally saw this years ago, and there was no hope for this to ever happen in my life. But I took consistent, scary action. That was the key. I don't believe in the law of attraction. Like, it's like this magical thing that just attracts shit to you when you think about it. Like, what it does is it tricks your subconscious mind to believing that that thing that you want has already happened. So it makes the action steps a lot less scary. So it made me keep on going. It made me find every single opportunity that I could possibly find to get that thing, because I had believed that it was mine already. So when I had that moment, I was like, it's on, because I can create anything that I want. And then from there, after that show, I ended up auditioning for a rock and roll TV show on VH1 and getting this part that started off as like not a big role, like a small little tiny, I was like this sexy chick that brought out the box when they like did the audience Q&A or whatever. It was nothing. But it ended up turning into 14 seasons on a really successful TV show in its niche. And I became the hard rock and heavy metal chick in the public eye. And Jason, I don't like heavy metal music. I didn't know anything about heavy metal music. I pretended that I did. So essentially I was playing a version of myself that wasn't really me, because I was me. It was a talk show. I was Jen, I was Jennifer. That's what they called me. In fact, my title on the show was Miss Box of Junk. Can't get more degrading than that. That was my title, Miss Box of Junk. Swear to God. But I was excited to have a gig, right? And then it kept on growing and growing and growing. And we were filming at Sony Universal Studios, and it was an hour long. I got my SAG card. I was making a ton of money. I was interviewing rock stars. But what ended up happening is I became more and more and more further away from who I was. And I was showing up as this version of myself that wasn't me. It was this version that I thought I needed to keep up with to make people like me, or make people accept me, or make me keep this job. And I became completely out of alignment with who I was, what I wanted, what I wanted to do with my life. So much so that, usually when you're out of alignment with what you're doing for a living, it trickles on into your real life. And I was found myself in a relationship that was completely toxic, and I became severely bulimic and addicted to Adderall and going out every night, and totally and completely lost myself. But if you were to have looked at my social media at that time, you would have thought, oh, this girl got it all going on, right? Because I made it look perfect. I made it look like I was this girl on TV, this heavy metal, sexy chick. I was on Broadway, all this stuff. And that's why I tell people, don't compare your life to other people's highlight reels, because you never know what's going on behind closed doors. And that was the darkest time in my life, because I forgot what worked, right? I learned this beautiful lesson from Wedding Singer, where you can create whatever you want if you just take action and you just stay true to who you are and what you want. And something happens a lot of the times, and I'd love to hear if you do this, but I do this sometimes. Humans do this. When you start doing something that works, you start getting successful and start to work, like maybe meditating or working out or whatever it is, or manifesting. Then all of a sudden, for some reason, you stop doing that thing that works, right? You bring yourself back down to the comfortable place, or you self-sabotage subconsciously. So I did that, and my life was a shit show. And so,
well, do you think
yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but do you think
Please.
that's mostly because as human nature, like a lot of humans, like they don't believe they deserve the success?
1000%. So it's an upper limit issue, right? And the book, The Big Leap, the upper limit. So we all have this thermostat where we're comfortable, right? It's like set, where we're comfortable. And then when we start to go beyond that thermostat, right, fear kicks in and it says, wait a minute, if you get that successful, you might fail. Or if you get that successful, maybe this person won't like you anymore. Or if you like, it starts to lie to you to keep you at your thermostat, right? That's fear's job, to keep us comfortable. And so what we do is when we start feeling that fear, many of us subconsciously bring ourselves back down. So we stop doing the things that work. And the key to success, and what I try to get myself to do every day and remind myself of, right? I have to remind myself every single day to do this, is to consistently ask myself, instead of when's the other shoe going to drop, or, you know, how is this going to be scary, or how could this all explode when it starts to get good, ask myself, how much better can it get? Right?
How can I turn up the heat?
How much better can it get? How can I, let's press on the gas a little bit more. How much more can I receive? Instead of that feeling of like, oh, something bad's going to happen. It's going too good. It's going too good, right? Like, when's the shoe going to drop? And I've done that. So I sabotaged my life, and I found myself within like a week's time finding out that boyfriend, the guy that I thought I was going to marry, he was cheating on me, and he gave me a couple of days to get out of our $1 million apartment that we lived in together. And I found myself with no boyfriend. My show got canceled that week, and living in a teeny tiny little room with a window that faced a brick wall with 6 other actors on the Upper East Side. And I remember looking out that window at that brick wall. It was like, the window was literally, Jason, it was like this big. And I had floor to ceiling windows with this finance guy that I was dating, like that. It was like that. And no job, no connections, no boyfriend, having to start over. And I remember writing down in my journal every day, over and over again. And I have these journals. It's like, one day I'll know why this happened. One day I'll know why this happened. One day I'll know why this happened. Because like, I did not know why, but I trusted, and I knew that one day, like, it would be the shit that had to happen for the shift to happen. Like I understood that. Maybe I couldn't verbalize it, but I got it. And I truly believed that it was my opportunity to start over and to fully show up as who I was and do what I wanted to do. And so that's what I did. And I decided to build a business. And because I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I really liked health and fitness. And I'm like, all right, I'll be a personal trainer. Like, I'll help coach people. And, you know, because I was a dancer and I knew how to do that, but I didn't know anything about business at all. I was an actress. Like, what the hell did I know? Nothing. I knew about PR and media because of my entertainment background. And I had a lot of great relationships. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to get in the media. I'm going to get on TV. I'm going to become the recognized expert in the fitness space. And I did that. And I built a really successful company really, really quickly, and got myself going really quick by leveraging the power of PR and leveraging relationships. So I started doing that, and it was good. Things were good. I had my own New York City apartment, right? I was like, this is cool. I'm training people. I had other trainers training for me. I became an online fitness coach. I was a mindset coach. I was diving into personal development. I was getting myself better. I had this good life. But the key to this is the life was good. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It was always just good. And I think that that's like the enemy of all things, because I was like, there's more here, but I couldn't, because I was so petrified to mess up what I built. I wasn't taking any risks. I wasn't going any further than exactly where I was. So I was like, this is good. Let's keep it here. But in my gut, I knew that I was made for more, because I wasn't performing, which is in my blood. You know, I wasn't, there were pieces of me that needed to express themselves that weren't in what I was doing. And I remember thinking, like, what is it that I really want? And it always turned into like a combination of like Britney Spears, Tony Robbins, and like Jay-Z and Beyonce. So I wanted to be like in a power couple, like Jay-Z and Beyonce. I wanted to be like an inspirational speaker like Tony Robbins, and I wanted to perform like Britney Spears. That was like my trifecta. Like, I was like, if I could have that, that'd be great. And then I met Chris Winfield, who is my fiance and my business partner now. I met him, I manifested him the same way that I manifested the wedding singer, full on. And it became very, very clear what needed to happen when I met him, because he was hosting events that connected entrepreneurs to the media. They were these events where he would speak on stage, and then he would bring in media, and he would connect these entrepreneurs to the media, and they would get themselves out there. And I would go to these events and I would help, and I would be there, and I'd be like, wait a minute, this really looks like Tony Robbins, Britney Spears, Jay-Z, Beyonce. Like, it really looks like that, because I could like be on stage and I could be helping people. And Chris came to me and he's like, let's turn this into a company and let's become partners. And we did, and we never looked back, and we created Super Connector Media. So now we have a full service agency where we represent some of the biggest personal brands in the world, get them in the media. And then we also teach people through live events before COVID, virtual events, how to get their message out and create an impact. And that's the story. That was really long, but that's how we got here. And that's why I'm sitting here with you right now.
Yeah, that's an amazing story, but I think you sold yourself short in just one area, right? And I think importance is manifesting, but you also took action on everything that you did, right? I think in our line of work, everyone talks about manifestation, but without action, without taking the steps, you actually still have to do, right? You can't just lie in your bed all day and sit there and say, one day I'm going to do this. One day I'm going to do this. Eventually you have to put yourself in the situation for those things to actually happen.
Yeah. And a lot of the time you have to take action before you even know what you want. So what I've realized recently is, clarity is key, right? Confidence equals clarity. With clarity comes confidence. A lot of the times people don't take action because they're like, I don't even know what I want to do. But many of the time I didn't even know what Super Connector Media was going to turn into. I needed to take action in order to figure that out.
Agreed.
So, well, at least this is my experience. And by doing it scared, and doing it knowing it might not work. And that's how you get clear.
And I want to talk about that fear for a second, because something that you and Chris teach right now, right, is you teach entrepreneurs how to get that confidence in order to get on stage, get in the press, speak their message, whatever it is that they want to do. I'm curious, what are some of the biggest reasons you've seen for lack of confidence?
So imposter syndrome is the number one, right? Like that. And what imposter syndrome is, if you don't know, I'm sure you've heard the term. It's a very
it's a common theme on this podcast.
People like to talk about imposter syndrome, but really what imposter syndrome is like feeling like you're a fraud, or feeling like you're not good enough to be in the room, right? And where does that come from? That comes from comparing yourself to other people and forgetting how great you are, right? That's where it comes from at the end of the day. And there's another piece to that. People often say, oh, I don't want to sound braggy. I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to be markety. I don't want to sound like I'm bragging about myself. And what I tell them is, it's self-promotion isn't gross or salesy. It's actually your responsibility. Because if you have a service or a story or a product that can help people, and you're not telling people about it, and they can't find you, they're going to go pay someone else that's not as good as you and doesn't care as much as you, just because you're too scared to talk about what you do, because you're scared someone's going to think that you're braggy. Like I know so many people who have actually saved people's lives because they decided to talk about what they do. Someone heard it and took action and saved their life.
I mean, we've been told as kids, right? Stay quiet, see unheard, just put your head down, stay unseen. Like, don't get being noticed is a bad thing. That's something that we've actually been taught. But when it comes to growing a business or getting out there, it's actually the worst advice you could possibly give. And Ryan Dice from Digital Marketer, he calls it like the tall poppy syndrome, right? People are afraid to stick their necks out also because of the imposter syndrome, but also in fear of the criticism, in fear of being called out, right? Because, with sticking your neck out, right, you get that with it. So I'm curious, I'd love to know what's your tips on overcoming that imposter syndrome, but also the advice on, dealing with sticking your neck out there and the uncomfort or dealing with the criticism.
These are my favorite questions, Jason. Let me just tell you, these are my favorite things to talk about in the whole world. So the way that I deal with fear, let's talk about fear first, and then I'm going to give you an amazing tool that everybody can use that's listening to get over imposter syndrome. It's my favorite thing in the world. So Fear comes in a lot of different ways. And for the first thing you need to do with fear is like congratulate yourself for feeling fear, because we're human beings and fear is normal. And that means you're normal if you feel fear. So there is not one person on the planet that is free of feeling fear unless they're like not a human and they're a robot, right? Like we all feel fear because when we stretch and when we grow, fear's job, like we talked about earlier, is to keep us safe so that we don't get eaten by a bear or a tiger or a lion or whatever. So fear is ingrained in us, and fear comes in a lot of sneaky ways now because it often lies to us. Like fear will come in the form of perfectionism. Like, oh, I can't do that because it has to be perfect before I do it. So I'll just wait until it's perfect for me to do it. So there's a way of keeping us from taking action, right? Fear comes in as analysis paralysis, not knowing what to choose, right? As long as we don't know what to choose, we can't take action. So there's fear keeping us from making a decision. Fear comes in imposter syndrome. Oh, they're going to know that I don't know what I'm talking about, so I better not do that, right? Keeps us safe. Or maybe even disease to please, right? Like that, being that person that dims their light to make other people feel better. Because as long as they dim their light to make other people feel good or like not make other people intimidated by you, you're staying small and you don't have to feel scared, right? So as long as we can acknowledge that those feelings that we're having is fear lying to us and giving us all these excuses to not take action because that's its job. And then what I like to do in order to put my neck out is I will talk to fear and I'll be like, all right, fear, I see you, I hear you, I get it. You're trying to tell me that it needs to be perfect before I can do it because you're going to try to make me not do it, right? I get it. I understand. And I thank you. And I'm grateful for you for keeping me safe. But guess what we're going to do? I'm going to put you in the car. So I envision myself being in a car and you're going to be in the passenger seat of the car. And we are going to drive through this action together. We're going to go on the journey together. You're going to be there. I get it. Fear is going to be in the passenger seat, but you cannot touch the driver's wheel. You cannot touch the radio and you cannot say a word. You can just sit there. I'm in charge. And when I do that visualization and I understand that fear is going to be there with me the whole time, no matter what, and I embrace fear, put my arm around it, let's go, let's do it together. Just shut the hell up. I'm driving. It always helps me to embrace it, feel that fear, get it. I'm human, know where it is, acknowledge it, be okay with the fact that I have that fear and then do it anyway. So that's how I stick my neck out, even when it's scary. And then the imposter syndrome question. I have this tool that I use, and it's called the badass list. And you probably, if you're on Clubhouse with me, maybe you've heard me teach the badass list. It's my favorite, and I will teach it over and over and over again until the cows come home because it works. And I want everyone to know it. And it came out of having a conversation with my friend when she was having massive imposter syndrome. And I remember sitting on this phone call with my friend who was a phenomenal coach. She created a course and she was like, I can't put this course out there. Who the hell am I to talk about this? Who the hell am I? And she was having like textbook imposter syndrome. And her name's Tori. And I hope she listens to this podcast one day. And I said to Tori, I was like, you're crazy. You're just forgetting how amazing you are. You're spending way too much time looking at other people and their courses and what they're doing and comparing yourself to them and forgetting how great you are. And I was like, you know what? Let's make a list of all the times in your life when you were a badass. Let's do it. And this is just, we were just playing, having a conversation. She's like, okay. And she starts writing all these moments in her life, business moments, life moments, all kinds of different moments. And I'm like, okay, read those out loud. She starts reading them. And I'm like, Tori, is that person worthy of putting out this course right now? She's like, yeah, that person is. And I'm like, well, that person's you. So sometimes we just need that reminder that we've done all the things. We are worthy of doing it. We all have badass moments, whether they are life moments. Maybe you ran a marathon. Maybe you were sick and you overcame it and you almost died, but you like came back stronger and better than ever. Maybe you spoke on stage in front of thousands of people, or you made your first 7 figures, or you gave birth to a human being. Like, we're all incredible. Now, just write those down. And then anytime you're feeling imposter syndrome, read those moments out loud as if you're reading them about somebody else, and take yourself out of it and read it as if it's someone that you are like comparing yourself to on social media. And ask yourself, is that person worthy? Like, is that person impressive? Guarantee you'll say, oh my God, yeah, that person's pretty cool. And then remember that that person's you, and go into whatever you are doing, knowing that that is you.
Man, I love that. I love that. And so I guess my follow up to that is, how do you translate that into the content you put out there of still promoting yourself, but not being sleazy promoting or being too salesy or whatnot? Because I think we think we're being too salesy, and it's usually we're not being salesy enough or promotional enough. But then there's also the people who are out there that are just like, okay, you're way too promotional. So how do you
Yeah.
balance that?
Well, first thing is if you're worried about being a bragger, you will never be a bragger, because braggers don't worry about being a bragger. They just brag. So just know that if you're like actually having that worry, it's never going to come off that way. That's number one. Number two, the way that I teach people, or that we teach people how to leverage their media or share their wins or promote themselves, whether it's on social media or in mainstream media or on video or however it is, or even in sales, is to tell stories. So, there's two different ways. Let's put it in with sharing media. Let's say that you were in Entrepreneur magazine, right? You had a whole full article all about you. You could do it this way. You could say, hey, guess what? I was in Entrepreneur magazine. Check it out. Okay. People will be happy for you and they'll be excited, and that's cool. And you could do that once, but then you're in it again, and then you're in it again. So every single time you're going to say, look at me, I was in Entrepreneur magazine. What if you instead of saying, look at me, I was in Entrepreneur magazine, what if you thought about the objections that the clients that work with you normally have? Maybe they're nervous to sign up with you because they're scared. Or they, what are their main objections? And then what if you told a story about that entrepreneur article or interview that kind of made you have those same objections? So maybe, I did this interview with Entrepreneur magazine, and they asked me this one question. And this question rocked me to my core, and it made me feel so unbelievably scared to speak my truth and say the answer to this question. But I did it anyway. I felt the fear and I did it anyway. And now here's the article of me saying something that I've never said publicly, right? Or like telling some kind of story that ties in an objection that maybe that client is having about working with you. And then they read this story that you tell about you feeling that way and overcoming it and doing it anyway. And then boom, they see the social proof of you being in Entrepreneur magazine. So what does that do? It brags about you being in Entrepreneur magazine, but it doesn't, because really what it does is it teaches how to get over an objection that your client, your current maybe customer, that could be a customer, is having in that moment. And so then they can relate to you, they can learn something, and then boom, they see the social proof and the credibility from Entrepreneur magazine at the same time, and you didn't even have to brag about being in it. So that's how we share wins.
That's amazing. That's awesome. That's a really cool technique that I'm definitely gonna use that one.
It's good.
I heard you talk before about creating an unfair advantage in life. Can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah. The ultimate unfair advantage in life is relationships. Full stop. People. Like, even especially like, we teach people how to get in the media. And if you think about it, journalists, producers, or maybe you don't even know this, I'm going to tell you this. I speak with them every single day. We bring them on to speak with our, people, members of our community and stuff. They get over 1,000 emails, some of them 2,000 to 3,000 emails of pitches in their inbox every single day. I'm like, what makes you open up an email? What subject line makes you go open up an email? They're like, it's not a subject line. It's a relationship. If I know you, if I was introduced to you, if you have done something nice for me, if there was a connection, and I know who you are, I will open the email. That same thing goes for absolutely everything. Chris and I invest hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in relationships. We join masterminds. We do it because we know every single thing that I've ever done to build this business as quickly as I did had to do with somebody, a human helping me, guiding me, connecting me to somebody. And so the unfair advantage and the secret to building relationships is the law of reciprocity, right? It's an actual law that states when you do unto others, they will want to do for you, right? Like, Jason, if someone does something nice for you out of the blue, what do you immediately want to do?
Return the favor.
Return the favor immediately. So if you could just focus on helping as many people as you can without thinking about anything else, if all you did all day long was try to help people, you would be the most successful human in the world, because all of those people are going to be knocking on your door saying, thank you. Can I please do something for you, please? And that's how it works. That's how the world works. So forget anything that I'm saying today. If you get one thing out of this entire podcast, it would be HOPE, hope. Help one person every day. If you just think about helping one person every day, whether that's with your content, whether that's with your actually doing something to help somebody, or maybe it's even, the simplest, tiniest thing to make someone feel good, like, or a random human, whatever it is, help one person every day, you will be successful in whatever it is that you want to do. It works every time.
So, I mean, how can people actionably do this without to build these connections? Because I'm a big believer in connections too, but without coming across as needy, wanting, or just one-sided for example, I want to be connected with you, right? How do I develop this relationship? Or a listener sits there and says, Jen sounds amazing. She's someone I definitely want to get to know. How do they develop a relationship? Because from the start, there's a want, right? I want to develop that relationship with you, right? So immediately you see a want. How do you change that dynamic?
Yeah. You think that I see a want, but I don't see a want. So the first thing is to never underestimate the other person's insecurities and the fact that every single person needs help with something. And every single person also wants to connect with people too. It's not just, right? People are people. We're all humans. It doesn't matter the hierarchy or whatever, like nobody's like everybody poops. We're all human beings.
Yeah, but I'm sure you get like the billion DMs. I'd love to pick your brain. I'd love to pick your brain. Obviously, that's a horrible way to do it. So what's the right way?
Here's the right way. Everybody needs help with something. I don't care if you are President Barack Obama or if you are whoever. Everyone needs something. So think about how you could provide value to that person. Get creative. Don't ask them what they need help with. Because if someone asks me, hey, Jen, how can I help you? I'm going to think that that's a homework assignment. I'm not going to know. I'm going to say, I don't know how you can help me. I don't know. You can just be you, be amazing, right? Think about what that person would need help with. Okay. So let's say it's you. All right. Like I know a couple of things that you could use help with, right? Like I know I could go give you a 5-star rating on your podcast. I could write an amazing review and then I could screenshot it and I could send you a DM and say, I just give you a 5-star review and I wrote you an amazing 5 stars, wrote you an amazing review on your podcast. Here you go. Like, I just wanted to let you know that it was incredible. And if it was a really well thought out review, you'd be like, holy shit, that's amazing. You would want to do something for me, right? Let's say it's somebody that has a book coming out, right? Like think about what someone has going on that they could use help with. I've done this for many people for absolutely no reason. I will go order 20 books. I will send them to all my friends. I will screenshot their receipt. I will send it to the person with the book and I'll say, I'm obsessed with your book. I just gifted it to 20 of my friends. Then I'll go to Amazon and I'll write a really amazing review and I'll send that to them. Maybe for you, here's another example. You have a podcast. You need amazing guests on your podcast. Maybe I know somebody that I could connect you with just out of the blue. Just like, hey, I'm making a connection with you and this person that's going to be a dope ass guest for your podcast, right? And I didn't even ask you. I'm just going to make that connection. Or, I mean, maybe it's even more simple. Maybe it's, just commenting on someone's posts, right? I know that there are several people out there that follow my Instagram and stuff, and they write thoughtful, amazing comments on all of my posts. And I know them because I see them all the time. I'm like, they're amazing. Thank you. And they consistently do it. They share my stuff on stories. They screenshot it. They share it. They write thoughtful things. That goes a long way because what do I need help with? Or what does someone like me need help with? Like building my audience, right? What else do I need help with? Referrals. Know somebody that would be great for my program? Connect them to me. Holy shit, I want to help you. So think about what that person needs help with most and go and do that for them. Guaranteed, it doesn't look like you're just doing that to get something in return. And you need to do it not expecting something in return. You just need to do it because you want to do that for that person. And whenever I'm thinking about helping someone, I'm never thinking about what can I get from that person or what do I want from that person in return. I just think about, I want to develop a relationship with this person. I really want to have a friendship and a relationship that maybe one day I'll be able to help them and then maybe they'll be able to help me. Who knows? But the more relationships and the more friendships you have, A, the better your life is because the more full it is. And B, the more opportunities you both have to create wins for each other. It's never one-sided if you do it that way.
I love it. Love it. How important is being seen as an authority and building your brand to really achieving market domination?
It's your greatest asset. Authority is your greatest asset as a thought leader, entrepreneur, person with a service or a product, whatever it is. And the way I like to think about it is nowadays, the only way that people make decisions, not the only way, but one of the only ways, one of the main things is like, what's the first thing that you do? Let's say let's say someone recommends a restaurant to you. Like, you got to go to this restaurant. I'm going to ask you what you do. Maybe I'm going to be wrong, but I'll tell you what I do. What do you do when they recommend a restaurant to you?
Google it.
Thank you. You Google it, right? You Google it, you go check it out. You go look at the menu, you go look and see if it's got good reviews, right? You go to Yelp, I go see like, does other people like it? You Google it. So let's say someone's thinking about working with you, or maybe they get a referral to work with you. They ask someone, oh, I need an amazing copywriter. Do you know anyone? And then you get a couple of reviews, and then you go to Google and you Google these people. You go to their websites. Now, let's say you go to one person, both of these people charge the exact same amount of money. You get referrals from a lot of your friends. Both of these people are amazing. One person has a whole bunch of media logos on their website. They've been featured in Forbes. They've been featured in Time, in Inc., in Money. And then you go down the Google rabbit hole, and then they've been on TV talking about whatever. It's not even copywriting. They've just been on TV. Holy shit. Or they're the person that's on all the podcasts talking about copywriting. And then you go look at the other person who just got just as great a referral from your friend, but they've never really been in the media. They don't really have any authority or credibility or social proof from anybody else. It's just them on social media talking about how great they are. That's cool, but there's no trust from a more credible source. Who are you going to pick? You're always going to pick the person with the social proof every single time.
So let's talk about that, because, I was going to ask you why PR versus, you have Facebook ads, Google ads. I think you named the reason why, because those are still like huge trust and authority, placements. But when it comes to social proof, right? I get pitched this in my DMs all the time. Hey, you want to be featured in Forbes? Hey, you want to be featured in Entrepreneur? Hey, you want to do this? Hey, for $5,000, I could get you a ton of press, and you could put your as seen on your logo. Is that so you talked about having that as a social currency on the site, but is that currency being devalued now? And what's the right way then?
A little bit. So pay for play, like those things, those DMs that you get. I'm
a contributor for Entrepreneur, which is different than being paying for being paid for feature. But every entrepreneur I meet with wants that social proof of hey, how do I get an article in there? I just want to be able to say I'm in there.
Yeah. So you could pay for it. But it ends up being like a press release, or it ends up being a paid for play thing, which you can usually tell. And when you can tell that, there's nothing worse. It's it devalues your brand. So I always, and what that doesn't do is it doesn't build relationships, and it doesn't build momentum. And I'm in it for a long game authority and credibility. And you should always be in it for long game. If this is really what you want to do, and you really want to become the recognized expert in your field, you need to build up that momentum, and you need to build up the relationship capital. And I mean the relationship capital in the media. So if you legitimately get to be featured in Business Insider with a full-on article that was written by a journalist that writes for Business Insider about you, you now have that relationship with that Business Insider journalist. You can then leverage that relationship. You can then take that piece and you can send it to other people and say, look, my friend so-and-so, who's now your friend, journalist, wrote about me in Business Insider. Please check it out. And then you can create more relationships. And then that leads to something else, and that creates momentum. When you just pay for a placement, you get that little media logo on your website. Maybe someone will go look at that article and realize that it was pay for play. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll just say you were on Forbes, and that's great. And then there's value to that. Amazing. But you didn't create any social capital when you did that. And you didn't really create any momentum in your business when you did that. Because there is an amazing opportunity to create true momentum in your business by leveraging the mainstream media and going back to relationships, creating relationships with mainstream media. You never know when something happens in the news and they need content and they need an expert to speak on that thing. If they know you, they're going to call you, and that could give you the biggest hit that could change your whole entire life in business. Maybe that gives you a New York Times hit. Maybe that gives you a CNN hit because you knew someone that knew that you were the expert in that space. Something happens in the news and they need someone to comment on it. They're going to call you. And then you're going to get that big hit, and holy shit, that could change your entire career. So if you're going to go down the PR rabbit hole and you're going to start getting PR and media for your business, which every single person should, because I can tell you I'm awesome on social media all day long. I can say I'm awesome. I can say I am the greatest, I'm amazing, but no one necessarily needs to believe me because it's just me saying that. Other people need to say you're awesome. So everybody should be doing that. And if you're going to do it, if you're going to invest your time, your money, and your energy, Do it the right way. Do it the way that's going to give you the most long-term results. It's going to give you that relationship capital. It's going to give you the momentum. It's going to build on itself. And you're actually going to genuinely become, holy crap, the omnipresent, recognized expert in the industry that you're in.
So we'll wrap up with getting just a little bit tactical, because I think we covered a lot of great points. So what are your top tips to getting featured in press or on TV?
Okay. So I'll give you 3 things, and I'll end with a tool that you can use because I like these to be really actionable. Here's my 3 top tips. Number 1, you want to get really, really clear on where you want to be. So I ask many people, I'm like, okay, where do you want to be in the media? They're like, oh, I don't know, Ellen, Oprah, like that's great. But you're not going to get to Ellen and Oprah. Maybe you will if something crazy happens and you go viral, but you're not going to get there immediately. You got to start somewhere else. So really, where are your customers, audience members that you want, ideal people that you want following you? What are they reading? Where are they watching? What are they listening to? There's a couple ways you can do to find that out. A couple things you can do. You can ask them. Number 1, ask them, hey, what podcasts are you listening to? Hey, do you read any publications? Like, what are you reading? Or do you watch your morning news? Do you go online? Doesn't even have to be on TV. Do you go online and get your content somewhere? Where do you get it? And ask them. Number 2, a great way to figure out where you should be in the media is to actually use FOMO or jealousy or envy as a tool and as fuel. And what I mean by that is, you know, that feeling that you get when like you're seeing somebody else in the media or like someone else that does the same thing as you, and you're like, God damn it, how did they get that? Or like you get that feeling like, God, that should be me. Why is that not me? Why is that them? Instead of letting that take you down the rabbit hole of shame and letting fear come in and keep you from doing stuff, actually take that person's name, put it into Google News, and look at where they've been featured, because that's going to show you where you could be featured. Because if you do the same thing as that person, that means all of those publications, all of those journalists, all of those writers, all of those bookers like to write about, talk about people that do the same thing as you, right? So let's say I'm FOMOing over you, Jason. I'm going to type Jason Portnoy into Google News, and I'm going to see every single podcast you've ever been on. And I'm going to say, I could be on that podcast too, because I could talk about the exact same thing. Or, oh, this journalist wrote about Jason here, talking about podcasting and, you know, or talking about, you know, whatever, business. And I could talk about that too. I'm going to dog ear that publication and that journalist, and I'm going to reach out to them. So the person that's done it before you, instead of being jealous of them or FOMOing over them, actually go down the rabbit hole and realize that they're painting the way. You can be featured in all those places too. So that can give you your clarity list.
They did the research for you.
1000%. It's right there. Yeah. Go do it for anybody. Like go do a Brene Brown. If you're a coach, go do a Brene Brown news search. You will find so many different publications that you probably didn't even know existed that she did interviews with, just because you did the Google search.
She's awesome. I love her. I loved her Netflix series. She's awesome.
Right? Incredible. Okay. So that's the first thing. Second thing is you want to make sure that you use your message, or you tell stories that make people lean in. So the 2 biggest questions there's 3 biggest questions. The first 2 are, where do I pitch? Where should I be? And then the second one is, what should I talk about? And when we talk about what you should talk about what we should talk about, we always teach the lean in story. So pay attention to when you're talking to other humans, when their eyes glaze over and they don't give a shit about what you're talking about, right? They start to look another way, look over your shoulder for somebody else more important to talk to, do something on Zoom and Googling, and you know that they're not looking at you. Those are not the stories you tell. All right. And sometimes our stories are too close to us. We don't know what's interesting and what's not. So we have to pay attention to what other people do when we tell the stories. So when you tell a story and all of a sudden somebody goes like this, oh my God, tell me more. That's so interesting. They lean in. That is a lean in story. That's an interesting one. Put it in your pocket, write it down. That's what people want to hear. And sometimes those stories are not stories that have absolutely anything to do with your business and what you do. So for me, my lean in is the fact that I was on VH1 for 14 seasons on a heavy metal talk show. All right. When I was a fitness person, I never wanted to talk about that ever. I was like, that's in my past. I never want to talk about that. No one needs to know about that. It has nothing to do with what I do now. However, every time I talked about it, all of a sudden people paid attention. All of a sudden people wanted me to be on their podcast. They wanted me to be in the media, like write articles about me, put me on their show, because that was the lean in. So how can you tie in the lean in into what you do now? Right? So think about when people lean in. Usually it's a messier part of your story. That's okay. That's usually what people want to hear. People don't like reading about or learning about or watching about perfect people because they're not perfect. So they want to be able to relate to you. So what's something about your story that makes you interesting and different and makes people lean in? So that's the second thing. The third thing is, who do I pitch? Who do I pitch, right? Like, all right, I know where I'm going. I know what I'm talking about. I know my pitches. Who do I pitch? And this is where relationships come into play. And we talked about the fact that these journalists get 2,000 sometimes emails in their inbox. So you could pitch people cold, send them an email. Maybe they'll open it, maybe they won't. But why would you do that when that's like kind of a waste of your time? Because you don't know these people, they're probably not going to open your email. So how can we go downstream and make it easy? How can we go for the lowest hanging fruit? You need to go with the people that you know first, and you need to look into your relationships. And so we have this tool called the Top 20 tool that guarantees you anybody that's listening to this podcast, including you, Jason, right now, can dive into your current network that you have and find relationships and be able to get in the media without spending any money in 20 days. Okay. Can I teach it? Can I tell you what it is?
I'm excited. I'm listening. This is my lean in.
All right, cool. I want you to do it. I want you to tell me how it goes. So you're going to think about what your goal is. So let's say your goal is to get in the media. Okay. So you're going to put on the top of your paper, you got a piece of paper, right? We're doing this as a chart. The top of your paper, you're going to write, I want to get in the media. Then you're going to make 4 columns on your sheet of paper. In the first column, all the way onto the left, you're going to write people, and you're going to make a list of 20 people in your life network. So your whole life, people you went to high school with, college with, your childhood friends, aunts, uncles, moms, dad, everybody in your life that you know that could possibly connect you to somebody in the media or maybe has some kind of connection to the media. Now, it doesn't matter if you've spoken to them in a while. I don't care. Maybe you haven't spoken to them in years. I don't care. Write their name down. You know 20 people. Go into your social media, go into your contacts of your phone, 20 people. Next column over on the top, you're going to write influence. And you're going to rank each person on a scale of 1 to 10 on how influential they are in getting you what you want. So not how influential they are, like how many Instagram followers they have. How influential are they in getting you into the media? So let's say your sister's best friend is the editor-in-chief at Forbes. And so your sister would be on the list because her best friend is the editor-in-chief at Forbes. If it's her best friend, I'd say she's a 10 on the influential scale.
Yeah.
But let's say your sister used to date somebody that used to write for Forbes. All right. So maybe she's not that influential anymore because they used to date and he only used to write for Forbes. So it's not that influential. So maybe that's like a 3. Okay. So you got that. Then you move over to the next column and you're going to rank each person on a scale of 1 to 10 on how likely they are to help you in getting you what you want. So if it's your sister and you've got a great relationship with her, I would say she's a 10, right? Or a 9, hopefully. She's very likely to help you, right? But if it's somebody that you met at a party for 5 minutes, but like they've got a great connection to somebody, they would be lower on the numbers, like 2 or a 3, right? So then you're going to add up those 2 scores and you're going to have a grand total score in the 4th column. Then you're going to sort the scores in descending order from highest to lowest. So the people with the 20s, the 19s, the 18s, those are at the top, and the people with the lowest scores are at the bottom. And that's really good news for you because the people at the top of the list are likely to help you. They're influential. They love you. They care about you. Like these are people with high scores. So when you start reaching out, you can just ask them. Those people, they want to help you. Believe me, because do you feel good when you're able to help people that you care about?
Of course.
You want to, right? Makes you feel good. So you just got to ask. So sister, hey sis, I want to be in Forbes. I know you got this connection. Here's my pitch. Please connect me. I love you so much, right? Ask them. People lower on the list with lower scores, these are people that maybe you don't have a great relationship with anymore. You have to do something to build that relationship. And this goes all the way back to what we were talking about earlier with relationship capital. So instead of asking them for help, you're simply going to do something to provide value for that person. You
got to make deposits into that relationship first.
Deposit, not wanting anything in return, just doing something for them. And you may need to go down that list and do something for them again and again and again and again. But I promise if you keep doing it, they will at some point in time, number 1, you'll make a great relationship with that person. And that's a win, right? Friendship, amazing. But number 2, they will come back and say, God damn it, Jason, you've done so much for me. Can I please help you? What can I do? Please? Can I please help you? This is how it happened to me so many times when people have called me and literally been like, Jen, let me do something for you. And then I'm not even asking anymore. Then I'm just saying, okay, fine. I really want to be connected to this one person. Could you please connect me to them? Right? Like, and they, of course I can. My gosh, is that it?
And this is a great tool. I love how you're using it, but it's a great tool for anything you want in life, whether
Anything.
like just anything you want to make $1 million, say your goal is to make $1 million. Now rank the people who could help you make $1 million and do it that way.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Can help you find a wife or a husband, investors for your company, anything.
So now that we did it, we're on stage, we're on TV, we're in the press. How do we look good and become a superstar on there?
Yeah. You don't try to look good and become a superstar. You just be you. So many people, I see the biggest mistake I see people make is they get on TV or they get on stage and they become this version of themselves that they think they need to be to please other people, right? All of a sudden they stand differently, or they do their hair and makeup differently, or they act a certain way that they think that everybody wants them to act. People can smell inauthenticity from a mile away. If you just remember that you are speaking to one person, that maybe it's your favorite client, or maybe it's your best friend, or maybe it's your partner. And whenever you're doing that interview, or you're speaking on stage, or you're doing that Facebook Live, or you're doing that video, you are just talking to that person that you feel the most you when you're talking to that person. You will always do an amazing job. We mess up when we try to be something that we're not. So whenever I do TV interviews now, I'm like, I talk with my hands, I say whatever I want. I'm just having like a friend conversation. And what does that do? If it's an interview, it makes the other person feel really chill, really relaxed, like they're having a conversation with you, and it makes the interview way more engaging and way more fun, number one. And number two, you'll never not know what to say when you're just being yourself. We forget what to say when we're too focused on saying the right thing. You know your shit. If you're going to be on TV or if you're going to be on stage, you know what you're talking about. We just mess up when we get in our head and we try to please everybody. Just talk to one person, and it'll flow out, and just be you. So that's like the number one thing. If you can just be you, be authentic. We are not in a world where we need to be some kind of buttoned up version of ourselves anymore. The way that you're going to stand out is by being as messy and imperfect and you as possible. You will always be successful on any stage ever in the world.
I think that's a perfect way to wrap up. Jen, thank you so much for doing this. For the listeners who now want to learn what they could do for you or help you and build that connection, how can they reach you?
Instagram's where I hang out. So at Jen_Gottlieb is the best way to find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you.
Thanks, Jason. This was amazing.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want, check out our most recent video over here. And this one is the one YouTube thinks you'll like. But if you really enjoyed watching, please do me a favor, like and subscribe over here. Thank you so much.